Thank you both very much. You were both on the Forbes Under 30 list. Do you know each other?
Both.
So two kindred spirits here amongst us. What was interesting is that you said caring is not enough.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people care, but we're stuck in our lives, having maybe one or two jobs, one or two children, parents to take care for, whatever. How can everyone take up that activism? Because not everybody has maybe the mental or literally the space to do that.
Of course, what I meant that caring is the first stage, but then it's not enough in the way that we must take the action. Obviously, we all have different access to taking action, and still today in most places across the world, also in Europe, it's still a privilege to be an activist and to join protests, etc. So it doesn't have to be the way we do activism, but what it has to be is support first people who act, because that is also lowering, support people who take that risk, and then depending on your skills, you can take that support. We have, I don't know about you, but I have many lawyers, for example, who support us. They have their lives, they have their kids, they have many things to do, but sometimes we need help and they can bring it at some moments. We need sometimes video makers. We need sometimes experts in the media. We need experts in many different places. We need experts in the farming skills. And so it doesn't mean that you have to stop your life right now and start a whole new job. Well, if you have the privilege, please do. But if you don't have obviously that access, you can still help by being a pillar with the others in order to be part of that movement.
Yeah.
And being part of a movement doesn't mean it's your daily life, but giving time and the possibility to bring that time is already huge.
What we saw back then was that a lot of people, it started out with the class actions and the children are going to school, but then, it turned into big, massive demonstrations on Sunday, people coming to the Capitol and a lot of people of all ages, colors, whatever. So it was like very inclusive. It was like we were all there for the climate. That was for me so interesting to see that you chose to have the Black girl environment. It's a difficult word for me. Environmentalist group. So not just girls, not just Black, but Black girl. Why did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to add something really quickly to that point. I just want to remind folks, hope is a discipline, right? I think oftentimes people see young people on stages or folks that you think are inspiring talking, and we all walk away and we go, "Whoa, that's so cool! I feel inspired," and we all feel good.
It's good that the young people still do it.
Yeah, more young people, but we feel good and we go home, and then the next day comes. And there is something there, right? That's not a sustainable feeling. You might feel inspired or feel optimistic for maybe a day, a week if it was really great. But if you really hone in on that feeling, it doesn't last long. Because the thing about hope is that it's something that you earn, right? We have hope because we are actively doing this work in our own ways, and there's so many different ways to do it, but because we are actively doing the things and seeing the progress happening, we're a part of it. So I invite folks to really lean into hope as a discipline and not something that you opt in here and there. As far as why we decided to do Black Girl Environmentalists, I mean, it really goes back to what I was talking about before, and the fact that climate change does not impact us all the same. The systems that have created the climate crisis are oppressive systems, right? The climate crisis is a result of chattel slavery, of imperialism, of colonialism. And those systems, even though they may not look the same way as they did, in 1492, for example, they are still alive and well in the ways that we see the climate crisis impacting certain geographies more than others. And in the ways that we see, for example, in the US, there are some communities who are quite literally hotter than other communities because of the history of Jim Crow and the way that zoning policies essentially left some communities without access to green space and canopy tree cover, which, if you know anything about concrete, if there's no trees, no green space, it's going to quite literally be hotter. Whereas wealthier communities that have had access to green space and tree canopy cover are cooler. So we see those dynamics today. And so in empowering a specific demographic who, again, have been systematically left out of climate discussions, systematically left out of the political decision-making table, we are saying, hey, no, in order for us to create just climate solutions that don't replicate the systems of oppression that have led us here, we need to make sure that everyone has access to the climate movement. So that's why we're specifically empowering that demographic.
You both say you say you have to advocate hope, and you also say it's you could start out with thinking what activism and supporting people who are very active. You started out the movement also with Anuna de Wever, very famous by now, and she recently said in an interview, "No, we are being too kind, too gentle. We have to be harder." Stronger statements, maybe even rock the world. How did you reflect on that?
I think that the movement is super diverse, and that's its strength. Okay, of course, the reality is super harsh, and so I really support Anuna's also phrases. Sorry, I lose my words, but to say that we have to be harder. How do you not want to say that when it's been more than 7 years that you have used every democratical tools to warn your government, not that you are waiting for something to go faster, to just face facts, climate, environmental justice facts. So obviously, and before we started organizing ourselves democratically, there was 50 years of warning from experts. So how do you not want to go harder in your ways of demanding justice? It's justice that we're talking about. It's not an ideal world that we wish everybody was happy. No, it's a real facts-based demands. And I think this is the strength of the movement, the strength of democracy, and the ways also of a theoretical change using the Overton window, where you will need, I don't know if some of you know this theory of change with the Overton window, where you will need movements to be super diverse in the way of acting. You will use civil disobedience, for example, in order to alert and to create a direct reaction. And then you will have still climate strikes, you will have people talking on stage, you will have different ways of acting. And this push of window, thanks to the civil disobedience, will allow the speech on the stage to be more radical, because it will look more acceptable to society than the one of civil disobedience. So it's a whole, what I'm saying here is that it's a whole strategy also. And it doesn't come out of nowhere. And it makes total sense. And I think it's very important to take into account these words, because people are not just going to sit into injustice.
Yeah.
People will stand up. And if it's not taken into account into the institutions, then it will be taken outside. And that's what's happening now. And people will never stop. That's for sure. You cannot stop a movement. And that's what we've tried. We've seen that in France, for example, they tried to dismantle movements on paper, but it just, people come back. They are furious. And that's why now, what I said earlier, engaging yourself, being part of an activist, supporting activists is part of democracy. Because these people are trying to share a message where they have no other places to share it. So if they're using civil disobedience, it means that there is no other places for them to share this message. And we should not undermine that.
But of course, the risk is if there's more need, maybe because of the time is really ticking, for more radical statements, maybe even more radical actions, that the whole debate becomes much more polarized as well, where you actually have believers and non-believers, where you have Trump and scientists. But, it's actually more becoming like a religion also for Trump to do everything against them, just as a way, because he wants to do the fighting and the polarization. So isn't that one of the risks if we become more clear and more radical, that it is more split?
I think we're not radical enough.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Specifically with individuals like Trump, he's not new. We constantly see individuals and corporations that are putting profit over people every time and time again. That is the 1%. most of us care about clean air, clean water. Most of us care about the vitality of ourselves, our loved ones, and future generations. And so I think it's almost fictitious, this narrative that, you know, it's between the non-believers and the believers. Most people care about climate change. Like statistically, even though, you know, the image of the US is that, you know, people don't really care about climate change. When you look at polling, more than 75% of Americans believe in anthropogenic climate change, human caused climate change. The percentage is higher if you're asking people about whether or not they themselves in their lifetime has seen changes in the climate in regards to the frequency and durability of natural disasters. I mean, we're talking about a state like Texas. Quite literally just recently saw, you know, many young girls lose their lives. And we can connect lack of climate action in a predominantly red anti-climate state to the lack of resources available in the aftermath of climate disaster. And so I think we're at a time where, again, climate change it's 50 plus years. We've known that it's here. And right now we need more people to be more radical because the time doesn't exist, actually. We're seeing more and more climate disasters happen. And if we don't act now, you know, the dynamics of what this could look like, even after our lifetimes, is devastating. And so I don't even think we should be having the conversation of becoming more center. No, we need to make sure that we're investing as much capital as possible in scaling climate solutions, because the reality is that we actually already have all the climate solutions necessary. It's really a lack of capital and funding. People just don't have the resources to scale the life-saving initiatives that folks are already harnessing as a means of survival.
Quick final question, because time is ticking, not only just for climate, but as well for us. You said we have to be hopeful and cherish hope and work on hope. Are you, when it comes to climate change, and especially our answers to it, our solutions to it, are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Or do you think, like Valérie Trouet, one of our scientists, has left the country, says, you know, I've given up?
So there's a quote that my friend Mary Hegler has, and she says, you can either be overwhelmed by the complexity of the problems or fall in love with the solutions. So I think that we have to choose the latter and have to lean into the opportunities that exist when we finally restructure our world to be just for all of us.
Yeah, you're still optimistic?
The reality is devastating. And still yesterday, to be 100% honest, I was crying in the train thinking, we're never going to make it. And that's the reality of also many of us who engage constantly. Now, the reality is hard. And sometimes we don't even know if what we're trying is the right way. Everybody's doubting, and we're going to have to figure it out while trying. But what I can tell you, and where I find the most energy and love and joy, as you were talking, is in people and communities and projects, because it doesn't even matter if those projects end up being successful. As long as there is a project, as you're moving forward psychologically, you are answering all your depressions. So the best pill to depression right now in the crazy world is being engaged and active. And of course, we all figure out the best way to do it. But please, the message I do want to share is we should not pull down people in their actions. We all have different ways of trying. Some will go inside institutions and I will support them. Some will be outside and I will support them also. We must all find our place of feeling connected and good in our way of acting and supporting everyone else who will be taking these actions. Thank you.
Was that Billie Eilish we saw in that picture?
Which one? My Future?
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Is that what's playing?
Yeah?
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Billie Eilish is very cool. But the two of you are also very cool and ready to conquer the whole world.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wawa and Adélaide.